has responded in a very firm and resolute manner to the big deterioration in ties between India and Canada triggered by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau 2 days ago. I'm Shiv Aroor. This is 5 Live. I'm going to take you through the blowback, the big takeaways from that press conference that the Indian government has just held, and we'll be getting you the big voices to analyze the implications of this. Thanks for being with me. These are the headlines. It's official, all Canadian visas suspended as a resolute India hits back at Canada. This means no Indian visas are being granted in Canada for the moment. Government calls out Canadian prejudice, says zero action taken by Canada on India's terror dossiers. Canadian MP's big message on Khalistani provocation alleges targeted attacks on Hindus, says Hindu Canadians have been asked to go back and are living in fear now.
Chilling Singh Panno attacked Hindu Canadians, asking us to leave Canada and go back to India. I've heard from many Hindu Canadians who are fearful after this targeted attack.
Chilling details of Khalistani extremist Sukhdul's murder. The gangster was shot 9 times in the head at his Canadian residence. Killers say Sukhdul murdered Goldie's brother. Big deterioration in law and order and criminal violence in Canada. Crackdown on Khalistani terror by National Investigation Agency of India. 10 accused in San Francisco Indian consulate arson attack identified. NIA seeks info on the accused from the public. Women's reservation bill set to be passed by the Rajya Sabha. Nadda leads BJP fight in upper house, lashes out at Congress over quota bill politics.
भारत को पहला ओबीसी प्रधानमंत्री
It's official, India has suspended all visas in Canada at this point of time. It's a story first reported by India today, earlier this morning, and now we can confirm that the Indian government has suspended the granting of all visas and is not accepting any applications for the moment at any of its consulates or the High Commission in Canada. The External Affairs Ministry has confirmed India Today's newsbreak to say that Indian diplomats are constantly being threatened in Canada, that the Indian High Commission's work has been disrupted, and therefore visa applications have been halted temporarily until the situation normalizes. People who have visas already obviously can use them, but no fresh applications are currently being accepted. No fresh applications for an Indian visa are currently being accepted in Canada. Very important. India has cited a threat to its own diplomats in Canada and talked about a heightened sense of tension and security in that country at this time.
You are aware of the security threats being faced by our High Commission and consulates in Canada. This has disrupted their normal functioning. Accordingly, our High Commission and consulates are temporarily unable to process visa applications. We will be reviewing the situation on a regular basis. E-visas, yes, e-visas also are on temporary suspension. They also, because they would at some point also involve our functioning of our High Commission, our diplomats there. All categories of visas are suspended. Let me explain again. The issue is not about travel to India. The question is not about travel to India. Those who have valid visas, those who have other kind of documents like OCIs are free to travel to India. But the issue is of incitement to violence, the inaction by the Canadian authorities, and a creation of an environment that disrupts the functioning of our High Commission and consulates. That's what's making us stop temporarily this issuance of visas or providing visa services. And as I said, we will be reviewing the situation on a regular basis.
I want to go across to India Today's two reporters who've been tracking all aspects of the big fallout of the India-Canada flashpoint triggered solely and solely by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Gaurav, the External Affairs Ministry confirming India Today's reportage over the last couple of days, confirming visas have been suspended by India in Canada. There is a heightened sense of tension. They've also talked about how nothing has come from the Canadian side to India on the Nijjar case, on which Trudeau actually, fired those shots, triggering this entire crisis right now. Your big takeaways from that press conference, Gaurav?
Shiv, three very major takeaways. One, scaling down of mission, bringing parity, not just in terms of numbers, but also in rank. And
Yes.
Canada has a much bigger mission in India than India in Canada. So Canada will have to scale down, and apparently that process of scaling down has already started. Two, Canada's inaction, and this has really upset India. India had repeatedly requested Canada to take action against the threats that were coming the way of Indian High Commissioner in Canada and the consulate generals at various places. Their names, their photographs, their phone numbers, their addresses were being put out in public domain. Posters with their names and phone numbers. A target was being painted on their back. And despite repeated requests, the government in Canada was doing nothing. And this was taken up at every level. At the level of the High Commissioner, at the level of the Ministry of External Affairs, at the level of the foreign ministers, and at the level of the summit, Prime Minister of India and the
Yes.
Prime Minister of Canada. And yet security, adequate security as per Vienna Convention, not provided. They're living in that environment of threat. No action taken against the Khalistani elements, and that's a cause for grave concern. So scaling down of the mission is a very major step that India is now insisting on. Two, the Ministry of External Affairs going on record to say
Yes.
no evidence provided and the allegations are politically motivated. So Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, stands accused of making politically motivated statements for his vote bank politics without sharing any evidence either then, before, or even now after so many days, Shiv.
Very, very interesting. And, Abhishek, even though the back channels and the diplomatic machinery, we can expect that they may be try and dial down these tensions. On the face of it, on the surface of it, India is not, moving 1 inch. In fact, it has escalated things and put the ball right back in Trudeau's court by talking about a heightened sense of tension. And a day after that very, very harsh statement put out by the External Affairs Ministry, this is India basically saying, we've done no wrong, you're the one who's prejudiced, and you need to answer.
Shiv, massive escalation as far as a rebuttal from India is concerned, and very strong words calling Canada a safe haven for terror. I think this kind of an expression for any country used by India is unprecedented. Perhaps in the past, India has gone on record to only call Pakistan a safe haven for terror. I don't remember New Delhi using this expression for any other country. So certainly, this is not going to die down because this is a big statement to make. And in fact, the big message with this statement was that Canada should think about its international reputation. So that's the kind of messaging that is coming from New Delhi. And also the fact that Arindam Bagchi, the spokesperson for MEA, said that there are about 20 to 25 terrorists who India has given information about to Canada, not just recently, but over the last few years. But there has been no response, no action. And calling the Canadian response prejudiced is, again, very strong words. And this is definitely an escalation because there has been a visa suspension as well. Again, that's something that's not happened with any other country. It remains to be seen how Canada is going to respond to this. Because remember, it was Justin Trudeau who first fired the first salvo saying that Indian agencies are involved in that killing. But the rebuttal from India has been extremely strong.
Stay with me, Abhishek and Gaurav. I want to take our viewers to the next piece of breaking news that we've gotten for you from that. We're basically breaking down the Indian government's first comprehensive press conference on this issue. So far, only statements have been released. The first press conference has happened. And now the next piece of breaking news, the big takeaway, India drawing that red line for Canada. This is a very resolute India that has, far from backing off, played it on the line and has debunked all calls from Canada as far as the Nijjar issue is concerned. India, in fact, has called Canada, in this many words, a safe haven for terrorists and extremists. India says Canada has not acted on its terror dossiers. It's an incredible irony. Listen to what Arindam Bagchi of the External Affairs Ministry has just said.
If there is any country, if you're talking about reputational issues and reputational damage, if there's any country that needs to look at this, I think it is Canada and its growing reputation as a place, as a safe haven for terrorists, for extremists, and for organized crime. And I think that's a country that needs to worry about its international reputation. We have been sharing details of fugitives from justice who have run away, who are seeking safe havens in Canada and elsewhere, to come back to India and face justice, and justice, whether it's economic fugitives or as terrorists. I think that's the way rule of law works. I don't even know what else to tell you how to handle. Easier would be if the host governments, where they're seeking safe havens, take action against such terrorists. वहाँ safe havens दे रहे हैं कनाडा में, वहाँ पे हम चाहेंगे कि उनके कैनेडियन सरकार सेफ हेवन्स न दें, और जिनके अगेंस्ट ऐसे टेररिज्म के चार्जेस हैं उनके ऊपर एक्शन ले, और वहाँ आइदर उनके ऊपर वहाँ एक्शन ले या हमें यहाँ जस्टिस फेस करने के लिए यहाँ भेजे. फ्रॉम आवर साइड, very specific evidence about criminal activities by individuals based on Canadian soil has been shared with the Canadian authorities on a regular basis, but not been acted upon. There is a degree of prejudice here, They have made the allegations, they have taken action on them. To us, it seems, or it appears, that these allegations by the Government of Canada are primarily politically driven. No specific information has been shared by Canada on this case, either then or before or after. We have, as we have said, or I think we've been made very clear, we are willing to look at any specific information. We have conveyed this to the Canadian side, made it clear to them that we are willing to look at any specific information that is provided to us. But so far, we have not received any such specific information. We obviously condemn any threat. But look, overall, I think we should look at the larger issue. The larger issues of terrorism, and not just terrorism, but also the fact that.
Gaurav, quickly to you, a quick answer from you on this. The External Affairs Ministry, the Indian government, explicitly describing Canada as a safe haven for terrorists. Is this possibly the first time this has happened? This is big.
It indeed is big, but sadly, it's also the truth. And this is the truth that Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, must grapple with. Why is Canada becoming a safe haven for terrorists? And this is at a time when you cannot say one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. You could say that when Pakistan, the epicenter of terrorism, Pakistan has seen this, Pakistan has suffered this. But now Canada going Pakistan's way is a cause for grave concern, and should be a cause for grave concern for the people of Canada. Look at the kind of extremists that you see in Canada. Look at people like Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, who's issuing threats, open threats to Hindus in Canada. And who is he to tell Hindus in Canada, you leave Canada and go? And if this, Shiv, we've grappled with this, right? In Kashmir, when Hindus were told to leave, and when the world turned a blind eye to it, Hindus were massacred in Kashmir. They were forced to leave Kashmir. Do we want the same to happen in Canada? Will Justin Trudeau wake up after that? That's the cause for serious concern. And that is where Canada really needs to act against these elements.
We have a very special guest. Gaurav, thanks very much for the moment. Ritesh Malik is president of the Canada-India Foundation that does a great deal of work in India-Canada relations. He joins me live. Ritesh, welcome. Thank you. I wish we were speaking in better circumstances, but clearly there is a very visible deterioration in India-Canada ties. I wanted to start by, because you're joining us just on the back of a very aggressive Indian Foreign Office press conference, which I'm sure you may have gotten the gist of, where the Indian government has confirmed the suspension of any visas in Canada. They've talked about a heightened sense of tension. What are you making of all of this? Opening comment from you, Ritesh.
Hi, it's very sad. I mean, what we've seen past 2-3 days, I mean, this is very, very disturbing for us as Indo-Canadian community. and responsible Canadians as well, because what we have seen in last few months, I would say, or how things have unfolded, that's very disturbing for all of us. Like, we came to Canada. I mean, we never, afraid to discuss the issues. A lot of people, we felt we had, and we came here thinking that we are going to a country which is, great. Canada is a great country, but I think like last few months of developments have been not what we all anticipated will face in Canada. Vandalizing of temples, and no action from law enforcement or politicians. You just said, open threats to Hindus to leave Canada or go to India. I
Yeah.
mean, these are not the things which, we expected from a country like Canada. Canada and India have had great relationship in the past. I mean, they both have so much in common as democracies. And, organizations like ours, Canada India Foundation, we've played such an important role to bring the two countries together. Like, we all remember those times when, India needed nuclear supplies for their
Ritesh,
civil
I want to come to some specifics because the Indian government is talking about a heightened sense of tension. They've asked the Indian students there to register with the high commissions, consulates, mother.gov.in. So there is a sense of panic among families. You're obviously in touch with people in Canada. What can you tell us about the situation on the ground? Is there a real threat?
Okay, you have to understand that, when things like this happen, and when, there are security advisories given on both sides, and, open threats given to people. And we need to understand one basic thing, that when Canada accused India of this thing, like, there is a sense of, like, how I should put it, that, a lot of people have started seeing Indians in a different way. So I'm not saying there is a real threat on the ground, but there is a lot of panic. I mean, we all should, there are a lot of students. I mean, Canada gets about plus 200,000 students, and students are, like, inexperienced, and, they always are worried about so many things. So this
Yeah.
has added to their anxiety. I
Yeah.
mean, this has added to their anxiety, and we as foundation have been getting a lot of calls from students, their parents in India, that, even business travelers wanting to come to Canada, that is it safe to come, we should come or not come. So these things are, of course, on the ground. I'm not saying there is real threat, but there is a lot of anxiety and panic amongst people, amongst
Yeah.
community.
No, because Ritesh, at this point of time, as the crossfire appears to escalate between both countries, the perception from India, and you are aware of this, is that the Trudeau government has done simply nothing against very, very open and dangerous calls for violence. Many of these Khalistani groups have published pictures, location details, phone numbers, addresses, perhaps, of Indian diplomats. You've got, another terror group openly threatening Indian Hindus over there, telling them to leave and go back to India. And yet all of this is being, described by Trudeau himself and his government as freedom of speech and not violative of any particular Canadian laws. There's a great trust deficit that is building in India's mind as far as Canada is concerned. And I'm not talking about the government, I'm talking about the people.
I'm not saying who is right or who is wrong, but I'll give you a small example.
Yes.
Like, whatever incidents happened in BC, after that, we all saw, Indian diplomats, their posters all over the place, and they being targeted. I think what Canada should have done is they should have reined these people in rather than providing security to Indian diplomats. So giving that message and providing security to Indian diplomats, give the message that, okay, even federal government cannot do anything about this. Like, I mean, the freedom of expression is a long debate been going on in Canada for long. And we always say freedom of expression is a charter right of Canadians, but unless and until it comes with a lot of responsibility, like, you cannot give freedom of expression on pretext of freedom of expression. You can't be issuing threats. You cannot be issuing hate ideology to people.
These are Ritesh, you know this very well, and I understand that as the president of the Canada-India Foundation, you must be a person who is building bridges. But, you know, if you think about it from the Indian perspective, these are open calls for violence. These are almost like supari posters. These are posters saying, isko maar dalo, isko dhundo, isko maar dalo. You know, those are the kinds of things that are being called freedom of speech by the Trudeau government. There's no midway in this.
No, I mean, I think you're right saying this, and we feel the same as a community. I mean, nobody should, on pretext of freedom of expression or freedom of speech, do such things. And again, my only question is that, if these threats are being given and if these threats are real, like if these are real, for example, that is the reason only federal government provided RCMP cover or security to Indian diplomats. If these threats are not real, they would have not provided security. And my another question is, if these threats are real and you've provided security, what have you done to actually counter these people or counter these people who are issuing these threats? These are real questions which, we as Canadians need to introspect. We as, we all need to introspect these questions. We just cannot say that these threats are not real. If these were not real, like why would you provide security cover to Indian diplomats?
Okay. I have two more questions, Ritesh, and I appreciate your candor in these questions. There are so many millions of Indian families who have relatives in Canada. People who are studying there, children, etc. And like you said, there's a great deal of anxiety that is built up. What advice would you give? The Indian government, has said, please register at the embassy, register at the High Commission. And, and when a government says, please ASAP register, that instantly triggers panic. So I want a realistic kind of assessment. What would you advise students there? I'm not trying to ask you to go out on a limb. I know it's a fluid situation, but what would you say to families and students there?
As you rightly said, it's a fluid situation and it's fast changing every day. Every morning you get up and you see new advisories or new press conference or new announcements, Canada pulling out diplomats and all that stuff. But I would just say, historically and, principally, Canada and India are good allies. I mean, these are temporary hiccups. And I would say sanity will prevail in the end, and both sides will sit down and talk to each other and resolve all the issues. But, the crux of the matter is that any civilized society, any progressive country like Canada needs to weigh in and introspect and see what is good for their society, our society. I mean, we are more concerned about what is future of our children here. I mean, we don't want to be living amidst people, who threaten people, who bully people, who openly issue threats against, peace-loving people. That's not the society we all want to, raise our children in. So I think at this moment, I think people on both sides should be calm and, they should not overreact. I mean, we got a lot of calls, people after, this guy from SFJ issued open threat to Hindus. We got a lot of calls and a lot of community members, community leaders, community organizations, temples, they are all in panic. But we only advise them not to overreact. I mean, these are fringe elements. Nobody cares for them. They don't have any say besides, a small section which has that ideology. But I think the important thing here for us as both countries is to sit down, talk, and, without appeasement politics or without trying to appease a certain section for votes, we should think what is good for both countries.
But Ritesh, that's the thing. The appeasement has continued non-stop, and there doesn't appear to be any change in the Trudeau government's policies as far as Khalistani terrorists are concerned. I mean, this is not about the Sikh community. The Sikh community is an amazing, proud community that has contributed so much to modern Canada and are responsible for those relations. But even these few are not being taken action against. That's the point.
Because, the problem is Sikhs are great people, and there are plenty of Sikhs in Canada all over the place in our circle who have immensely contributed in Canada, and they are very, very loyal to India. They don't even talk about Khalistan. They don't even know what is this issue. But the thing is that these small elements are very vocal. And we guys have not been very vocal in terms of what is right. So I think what needs to change is all pro Canada India people need to come on a common platform and hold these leaders or politicians accountable for what they are doing. That has not happened in Canada. That is the reason, they think they need to appease them, they need to please them.
Okay, we leave it there for the moment. I think this is, like I said, a fluid situation. It requires a degree of calmness, but at least so far that calmness is not coming from either of the governments. So hopefully the people will stay calm. The threat is still out there. We are not going to exaggerate the threat, but just for a moment to our viewers, I'd like to say, imagine if you're the parent of a student studying in Canada, or you have relatives in Canada, or you need to go there for, some kind of family function. Imagine how uncertain everything is thanks to the words of one man. And remember, and Ritesh, if you have time, I'll take one final question from you. The place where all of this started was Justin Trudeau linking India to the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. India today says, we've not even received one iota of information from Canada. They've completely exposed Trudeau.
I know, but I'm no one to comment on what happened
I
between
understand.
government to government. All I can say is that, and I would urge people on both sides that, it's people to people relationship when it comes to, countries. So I think Canada and India have great future together, great potential together. And we just both countries need to handle whatever are the hiccups for the benefit of people on both sides. That's all I can say. I mean, as I was saying before,
I
also,
understand.
Canada in the past has contributed immensely with nuclear program and whatnot. And similarly, Indians and India have contributed a lot to Canadian fabric today. So that is all we
Yes.
need to remember and work out on these differences and work out.
Yes, we most definitely. I completely agree with you, Ritesh, and I appreciate that sentiment, because even here in India today, we believe that dialing down tensions needs to be the need of the hour. But this is also a country clearly that has demonstrated it, does not take these provocations lying down. It will defend itself. It will not take kindly to allegations of this kind, and it will respond in the way that it has, because Khalistani terror is not a joke. It's a diplomatic issue that needs to be taken care of. It goes beyond just paperwork and relations between the two countries. This is about the safety of Indians, and let's not forget how many Canadians have been killed by Khalistani terrorists over the many years. Ritesh Malik, always a pleasure. Thank you very much. Learned a lot about India-Canada relations, and hoping for the best. Stay safe. Thanks very much for being with us here in India today. Now I want to recap for you the big takeaways from that big Indian government press conference that has just happened. Takeaway number one, viewer, is the government confirming India Today's big news break this morning about the Indian visa process being halted in Canada. So if you're in Canada and you want an Indian visa, your application is not going to be accepted for now. It's a temporary measure, but for now it's not going to happen. And this is owing to disruptions in the High Commission and Embassy. Government calling Canada a safe haven for terror is unprecedented. Very, very strong language being used by the Indian government. The Indian government has accused Pakistan, it's named Pakistan, and blamed it for funding these Khalistani terror groups that have found a safe haven in Canada. The Indian government confirms no inputs have been shared by the Trudeau government on the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, and they've still gone ahead and linked India to it. When Trudeau spoke in Canadian Parliament, the Indian government also says zero Canadian action, on the contrary, has been taken on multiple Indian dossiers that have been supplied to that country, detailing wanted terrorists who are living a free life in that country. The government of India has also asked Canada to trim its embassy staff for parity, because the Canadian embassy has much more staff that the Indian High Commission has in Canada, and therefore there needs to be parity, equal number, equal seniority of officers and staff in that place. I'm also joined now, I want to get an international perspective, by Chris Blackburn. He's a very well-regarded international affairs commentator who joins me now. Chris, good to have you. Right off the bat, what are you making of India's most visible decision right now to halt all visas in Canada?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a decline in Indian-Canada relations. I think it started with Justin Trudeau's announcement in the Canadian Parliament, where he said he had credible allegations against India. I think the Canadians need to provide facts. Overnight, we saw the killing of another Khalistani in Canada due to gang-related warfare. So we know that Canada's got a problem. How India is now responding to that problem, and effectively, I think that these visa announcements show that India and Hindus in Canada are really concerned about their security. So I think we will be starting to see tit for tat diplomatic exchanges between the two nations. But I've studied the issue for the last 20 years, and Canada drags its feet on horrendous things that happen in the Indian subcontinent. It's not just Khalistanis. We've seen in Bangladesh, the killers of Bangabandhu, the founder of Bangladesh, are still in Canada, and the Canadians have refused to do anything about it.
Very true, Chris. They've dragged their feet on many different international issues. Speaking about India and Canada, the two sides don't appear to be in a mood, to dial things down and to cool tempers, at least for the moment. In your view, how much worse do you think this could get?
Well, I think if you look, it's not just Justin Trudeau and the people who are around him in politics who support the Khalistani issue. The Canadian security agencies were humiliated by a government inquiry in 2010, which was into the Air India 182 event, one of the biggest terrorist incidents that we saw before 9/11. So I think what we're going to see is a rapid decline, but there's many factors that are involved in this current spat. And I think if justice prevails, India will come out on top of it.
We do know that Justin Trudeau has been trying to drum up support against India, before the G20 summit and probably after as well, Chris. Do you think the United States will, in some measure, need to sort of step in to cool things down, because the United States has a very close relationship with India?
Yes, I think because I think a lot of countries are looking at a sort of the broader horizon, and India is a star on the world stage now, and the global powers need India's help, especially in countering China in the South Pacific and other areas. So I think nations such as the United States, UK, and others, and Australia as well, members of the Quad, I think Japan will also play a role in this. We'll try to talk back Canada, ask them for proof. And if they don't provide it, I think this will be a major sort of faux pas and could probably see the end of Justin Trudeau's career in Canada.
Because it looks to most people like Trudeau has painted himself into a corner, because since then it's been a non-stop series of escalations for 48 hours now, Chris? In your view, what's the way back from this? Who needs to take that first step, and what is the way back from this?
Well, I think unless Canada have actual hard evidence, I think what we're going to see is an escalation, because India has a real concrete case against Canada for refusing and dragging its feet on the Khalistan issue. So I don't think it'll get resolved anytime soon. If anything, I think it will progressively get worse. And it will even get worse. Say the Canadians do have some form of evidence. We're likely to see this thing drag on for the next sort of 6 months to a year, possibly even longer.
Final question, Chris, is the sense of disbelief and a total breakdown of trust in the common Indian mind, looking at how Canada has simply refused over the years to take any action against Khalistani elements, including those who now call for the murder of Indian officials. Indian diplomats want Indians to leave Canada. In your view, why is Canada not taking action? Is there a reason beyond the obvious political vote bank reasons?
Well, I think, as I've said, I think there are multiple factors at work here. I think Justin Trudeau is playing to vote bank politics. We know that some of his close sort of friends and allies and ministers support Khalistan in Canada. So that he's in a difficult position. But then we've also got the Canadian security services. This is the whole Khalistan issue for the last sort of 30 years plus has been an embarrassment for the Canadian security agencies. So I would hope that Canada changes its position, is more proactive on the Khalistan issue. But with Justin Trudeau in power, we've seen that he's willing to dig in his feet. He's willing to drag this thing out. So I think there won't be any real changes soon, especially on the political front, as his numbers are beginning to sort of tank in the polls. I think Justin Trudeau has made the decision and calculated that he thinks this can be a win issue for him. So I think it's going to be very difficult moving forward.
We'll have to see where it goes. It's a fluid, unfolding situation. Are things going to be dialed down? Are things going to escalate even further? The only thing we can do is wait and watch and prepare our viewers for whatever uncertainty lies ahead. Chris Blackburn, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time here on India Today. We've got some breaking news coming in now. As India raises the pitch against Canada, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has just met Home Minister Amit Shah in Parliament. Dr. Jaishankar is reported to have briefed the Home Minister Amit Shah on the current situation between India and Canada. Remember, the Home Minister is also concerned directly because there are a large number of Indian citizens who are in Canada at this point of time. You've had the External Affairs Ministry under Dr. Jaishankar put out an advisory yesterday about the safety of Indian nationals, especially students, asking them to register with the Indian High Commission and consulates wherever applicable, or the mother.gov.in website is where all that information is being taken. Obviously, the situation is calm right now, but being prepared for any contingency going forward, Dr. S. Jaishankar meeting his cabinet colleague Amit Shah, the Home Minister, to make sure that India has a plan no matter what situation presents itself. And another piece of breaking news. This is an India Today impact. In the course of reporting the India-Canada relationship breakdown just after the G20, the External Affairs Ministry today has acknowledged an India Today report that I did on how the Canadian government for years has been discriminating against Indian military serving and ex-serving personnel who've served in operational areas like Jammu and Kashmir and the Northeast, but especially Jammu and Kashmir. The External Affairs Ministry says they've seen the reports, it's an area of concern, and they do pick it up from time to time. Take a look.
Look, I don't want to get into visa requirements of foreign governments, but yes, we have seen reports and heard some things, and if there are cases where we believe that our people are not being given a fair treatment or there been discrimination, we do take these things up. But I would not like to comment on individual cases. But yes, discrimination in how visas are granted by the Canadian side is something of concern, and there have been cases in the past.
And up next, a different story, but very much still in Canada. The gangster raid of another Khalistani terrorist, Sukhdev Singh, wanted by India, has been killed in Canada. 9 bullets in the head in Canada. What happened to him? Who killed him? How did it happen? Is this another statistic in Canada's deterioration in security?
उत्साहित थे कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार ने इस बिल को लेकर आया है, लेकिन जब इस बिल के अंदर में देखा तो हमें यह पता चला यह बिल तो धोखा देने वाला बिल है, महिलाओं को बेवकूफ बनाने वाला बिल है। ये बिल महिलाओं को रिजर्वेशन नहीं दे रही है, ये महिलाओं से रिजर्वेशन ले रही है। मैं बताता हूं कि कैसे करेगी।
प्लीज काइंडली चेक धोखा और जो शब्द आपने इस्तेमाल किया वो संसदीय है, बोलने में संसदीय शब्दों का ही इस्तेमाल करें।
प्लीज यू मे टेक द एप्रोप्रिएट डिसीजन।
ये काम आपका है देखना, मेरा नहीं। आप संसदीय शब्दों का ही इस्तेमाल करें।
थैंक यू। तो जिस तरीके से बहुत सारे जुमले दिए गए, ये भी उन जुमलों में से अगला जुमला है। जुमला दिया गया 18 करोड़ जॉब मिलेगा, कुछ नहीं मिला, जुमला निकला। किसानों के फसल को दुगने भाव मिलेंगे, जुमला निकला। काला धन वापस आएगा, जुमला निकला। महंगाई कम करेंगे, जुमला निकला। यह बिल भी जिस तरीके से इस पे पेच अड़ाया गया है उपसभापति महोदय, और मैं डिटेल में बताऊंगा कि कैसे पेच अड़ाया गया है। इस पेच जिस तरीके से अड़ाया गया है, ऐसा लगता है कि यह भी मात्र एक जुमला साबित होने वाला है। तो आपके माध्यम से पूरे देश के सामने मैं ये रखना चाहता हूं, कमेंसमेंट कब से शुरू होगा, कब से लागू होगा, इसके बारे में ये कहा गया है कि पहले सेंसस होगा और सेंसस के बाद फिर डिलिमिटेशन होगा, और डिलिमिटेशन के बाद फिर जाकर ये लागू हो सकता है। अभी नड्डा जी बात कर रहे थे, नड्डा जी ने स्वयं कहा कि 2029 से पहले तो संभव ही नहीं है। संभव है कि अगर बीच में एक दो अड़चने आ जाए तो ये आगे भी कितने साल जाएंगी किसी को नहीं पता। इसका मतलब ये है कि आज जिस बिल को हम डिबेट कर रहे हैं, आज जिस बिल को पास करने के लिए सारे इकट्ठे हुए, उसके भविष्य का किसी को कोई अंदाजा नहीं है।
Canadian Punjabi singer Shiv faces backlash over backing Khalistanis. The Canadian Punjabi rapper's India tour has been cancelled. 26-year-old singer is accused of supporting Khalistani elements. His Mumbai performance was scheduled for September 23rd to 25th. His social media activity espousing separatism came back to haunt him. The singer had earlier shared a distorted map of India. Following the outrage, cricket stars Virat Kohli, KL Rahul and Hardik Pandya, who once followed Shiv for his rap on social media, unfollowed him. Book My Show has initiated a complete refund of the ticket amount for all consumers who had purchased tickets for the Shiv's Still Rollin' show. Earlier, Indian company Boat had withdrawn its sponsorship. Bureau Report, India Today.
जब भारतीय संस्कृति की बात करता हूं तो भारतीय संस्कृति में नारी का स्थान अगर हम देखें तो आर्थिक स्वायत्तता में हमेशा उसका स्थान रहा। उसके सामाजिक जीवन में आर्थिक स्वायत्तता रही। अध्यात्म से लेकर अध्यापन तक नारी का विशेष योगदान रहा है। और अगर हम हड़प्पन काल की भी बात करें तो वो जो कांस्य की मूर्ति डांसिंग गर्ल है, वह बताता है कि हमारे समाज में महिलाओं को कितनी स्वतंत्रता थी और कितना इंडिपेंडेंस था, यह भी उसमें से दर्शाता है। यह दीगर बात है कि कुछ हमारे जब हम गुलामी के काल से गुजरे, मेडिवल पीरियड से गुजरे, तो उस समय पर्दा सिस्टम से लेकर के महिलाओं का जरूर कुछ जो उत्थान का स्थान था उसमें कमी आई, लेकिन भारतीय संस्कृति में उसे हमेशा ऊर्जा का स्थान दिया गया, देवी का स्थान दिया गया, शक्ति के रूप में देखा गया। और हमारे यहां शब्दावली भी वैसी है, गौरी शंकर, गिरजा शंकर, भवानी शंकर, सीताराम, राधे श्याम। अब हमको दुनिया समझाए लेडीज फर्स्ट, ये हमारे साथ एक तरीके से मजाक नहीं तो और क्या है, हमारी संस्कृति को समझने की आवश्यकता है। अगर हम देखें 21वीं शताब्दी जो है वो महिलाओं की शताब्दी है। 21वीं शताब्दी जो है वह महिलाओं की शताब्दी है। और फिर चाहे ज्ञान हो, चाहे विज्ञान हो, चाहे मिलिट्री एजुकेशन हो, चाहे सैन्य सुरक्षा हो, चाहे अर्थ जगत हो, हमें खुशी है कि आज हमारी भारत की महिलाएं अपने आप को लीडिंग रोल में लेकर के आई हैं और उन्होंने अपने आप को प्रतिस्थापित किया है और सम्मानित स्थान पर लेकर के आई हैं। इट इज नॉट ओनली द प्रेजेंस बट इट इज द पोजीशन, वह सम्मानित स्थान जो उनको मिला है, जो उन्होंने हासिल किया है, यह बताता है कि भारतीय नारी किस तरीके से उन्होंने अपना योगदान किया है। आज सॉफ्टवेयर की दुनिया में 21% हमारी महिलाएं हैं जो लीडिंग रोल में हैं। आज हम अगर इसरो की बात करें, जिसके बारे में कल परसों जयराम रमेश जी चर्चा कर रहे थे, उसमें अगर हम साइंटिस्ट देखें तो फिर चाहे मार्स मिशन हो, चाहे चंद्रयान हो, चाहे आदित्य L1 हो, इन सब में महिला साइंटिस्ट का बहुत बड़ा योगदान है। इसको भी हमको ध्यान रखना
कि ये संशोधन विधेयक वास्तव में महिलाओं को आरक्षण देने की साफ नीयत से नहीं लाया गया है, बल्कि आने वाली विधानसभाओं तथा लोकसभा के चुनावों में देश की भोली भाली महिलाओं को ये प्रलोभन देकर व उनकी आंखों में धूल झोंककर उनका वोट हासिल करने की नीयत से ही लाया गया है। और यदि ऐसा नहीं है तो फिर हमारी पार्टी सरकार से ये भी अनुरोध करती है कि सरकार इस विधेयक में से या तो इन दोनों प्रावधानों को निकाले।
Well, criminal violence and the security and law and order situation in parts of Canada is clearly in free fall because another gangster who was a known aide of a Khalistani terrorist has now been killed in Canada, smack dab in the middle of this huge escalation in diplomatic offense between India and Canada. Sukhdev Singh, that's the guy you see on your screen, who was a known aide of Khalistani terrorist Arshdeep Singh, alias Arsh Dala, who was wanted by India, was killed in Canada's Winnipeg city. Sukhdul's killing comes, like I said, amidst growing diplomatic tensions between India and Canada over the killing of another Khalistani terrorist, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, 3 months ago in Surrey, British Columbia, which is something that Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, has linked to India. Take a look at this report.
Sukhdev Singh, aka Sukha Dunike. Originally from Duneka village in Punjab's Mocha district. The 29-year-old, wanted by India in several terror cases, was shot dead in his house, flat number 203, located on Hazelton Drive Road in Winnipeg City of Canada on Wednesday. Sukhdev Singh is an aide of Khalistani terrorist Arshdeep Singh, alias Arsh Dala, who is also wanted in India. In 2017, Sukhdev Singh obtained a passport and police clearance certificate on forged documents to flee to Canada, despite having 7 criminal cases registered against him. He managed to escape Punjab with the help of 2 police officials who were later arrested by Mocha police. As per sources, Sukhdul's murder is linked to gang rivalry. He was allegedly killed by another Khalistani gang member for his alleged role in the murder of Goldie Brar's brother, Gurlal. While speaking to India today in June, Goldie Brar had declared that his name will pop up in the killing of Khalistani terrorists in Canada.
हर तरह के बंदे हमें अप्रोच करते हैं जी, इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है, पर क्या क्या करना है और क्या नहीं करना है वो हमें पता है जी, ठीक है। हमें पता, हम जो चीज करने की जरूरत नहीं है जी हम वो नहीं करेंगे, ये मतलब नहीं है। अगर हम कर सकते हैं तो करेंगे जी। और जिन्होंने नजायज इतने लोग मरवाए हैं जी, इतने बम धमाके करवा दिए इतने देशों में, उनका तो हम कभी भी नहीं कोई मदद करेंगे जी। हम दुश्मन हैं, उनके दोस्त नहीं है, ठीक है। कभी हमारा अगर नाम आएगा तो उनको मारने वाले बंदों में आएगा जी।
Sukhdev Singh's killing comes amid growing diplomatic tensions between India and Canada over the murder of another Khalistani terrorist, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. The 45-year-old Nijjar, wanted by India in several terror cases, was shot dead in the parking lot of a Gurdwara in Canada's Surrey. He was gunned down by what investigators initially said were two masked men who fled the scene. Nijjar is named as a member of the Khalistan Tiger Force, a designated terrorist group. In 2016, he was linked to a 2007 bombing at a Punjab cinema that killed 6. Nijjar claimed to have moved to Canada in 1997, working as a plumber at a local Gurdwara. India has categorically rejected Canadian allegations of involvement in Nijjar's murder as absurd and politically motivated, saying that Canada had long provided shelter to Khalistani terrorists and extremists. Experts, however, believe non-state actors like Nijjar, crafted by Pakistan's rogue ISI, have been caught in their own web.
It is the policy of Pakistan's ISI to eliminate, to send terrorists to different countries. They eliminate their own people. And these people who have been killed, either in Pakistan or Canada, they had become liability for Pakistan, whether it's Hafiz Saeed or Syed Salahuddin.
From Canada to Pakistan, the violent deaths of Khalistani elements could very well be the handiwork of the ISI that once nurtured them.
If there is any person who is working for any agency, if he is unable to deliver, then he has to be sold out or killed. That is what Pakistan ISI is doing, because Pakistan had been spending a lot of money on terrorists and terrorist activities in India and elsewhere, but lately Pakistan is in a big problem, economic problem. Pakistan cannot afford them, so it is Pakistan who is killing them, or Pakistan ISI who is killing them, or in some cases there is inter-gang rivalry.
When will the Trudeau government act against the increasing lawlessness by Khalistani-linked gangsters who are posing a threat to Indian-Canadian community? Bureau Report, India Today.
Keep watching India Today. Up next, 6 p.m. Prime with Akshita. We're also standing by on Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who's expected to speak in the Rajya Sabha on the Women's Reservation Bill. It was passed in the Lok Sabha yesterday, all set to be passed in the Rajya Sabha as well. All the highlights, and we'll be live on the other side.
इसका अमेंडमेंट करने का कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। ये आप अब करने का तो ये 31 को डाल रहे हैं। इसका मकसद क्या है कि बिल ऐसा ही चले। नहीं, आप ही ने कहा 29 के बाद ये सब
29 को
नहीं, मैं सर जब पंचायत में रिजर्वेशन के लिए होता है, जिला पंचायत का होता है, तो ये वुमन रिजर्वेशन का क्यों नहीं होता? आज करो। और मैं एक कबीर का दुआ सुनाता हूँ, कल करने का आज करो, आज करने का अब करो, और फिर तो पल में प्रलय होगा तो फिर करेंगे कब? पल में प्रलय होगा तो फिर करेंगे कब?
मिस्टर नड्डा,
तो इसीलिए आप आज कीजिए, वी आर रेडी। वो इलीगल नहीं होता, जुडिशरी नहीं होता, कुछ नहीं।
I don't understand how Canada could go public in such an embarrassingly dismaying manner in their parliament, making unsubstantiated accusations against India. It does look like in Canada the need to pander to a domestic political constituency has overridden their good sense about their relationship with India. And I think we need to now take some steps to ensure that it doesn't deteriorate any further. I know I was shocked to hear about the threats to Hindus and Hindu students in particular. That is something which the Canadians have a responsibility when they accept people on their soil. They have a responsibility to look after the well-being and the safety and security of all people, certainly of Indian citizens there. And because they are the ones who provoked this problem, they need to be particularly conscious of their responsibility to prevent it getting out of hand.
It is very disturbing to hear that situation is getting worse because of the relationship between the two countries. A lot of Punjabis in large numbers have settled down in Canada. Every year, nearly about 1 lakh students go and study there. There's a sense of panic which is crept up in Punjab. People are calling me up, parents are calling me up, what will happen to their kids, what will happen to their families. So Government of India and Government of Canada should, as soon as possible, find a solution to this.
सत्ता पक्ष हो या विपक्ष में हो, जितनी भी पुरुष मानसिकता है, महिलाओं की वंदना, इतिहास गवाह है कि जब जब आपको शक्ति की जरूरत होती है, जब जब आपको सत्ता पाने की जरूरत होती है, जब जब आप विजय की आशा रखते हैं, तब आप एक महिला को देवी बनाकर उसकी पूजा करने लगते हैं, वंदना करने लगते हैं। लेकिन अंदर में एक पुरुष की जीत और उसकी वंदना होती है। आपकी वंदना हमने जंतर मंतर में बैठी उन महिलाओं के रूप में देखी। आपकी वंदना, आपका महिलाओं का सम्मान जब मणिपुर पे हमारी महिलाएं निवस्त्र हो रही थी, हमने तब देखी। आपकी वंदना और आपकी पूजा और सम्मान जब एक रेपिस्ट को बचाने के लिए, जब आप सत्ता पक्ष वालों को यह मालूम चलता है कि वोट की राजनीति में जरूरत है, तो मैं रिक्वेस्ट करती हूँ
the strained relationship between India and Canada is going to impact the immigration business?
As of now, we have no records, as there is no report and no updation on immigration impacts from both the countries. So till we receive anything formally, we cannot comment on that. Right now, immigration is going as it was going before.
In a process to migrate to Canada on a study visa, are they worried? Did they contact you?
Some of them have, because the social media these days plays a great role as to where we procure our information from. Yes, they are obviously affected by whatever is going on the social media, but to them also we have issued that same statement that till the time there is any formal announcement by our government or government from Canada, we cannot take it for granted that immigration will be affected.
बहुत सा बच्चा हमारा वहाँ गया हुआ है, ट्रेड्स है, वहाँ पे लोग ऑलरेडी रह रहे हैं और बहुत सारी कंपनियां हिंदुस्तान में कनाडा की। सो ये खत्म होने में ही दोनों कंट्रीज का फायदा है।
वहाँ पे जो भी हो रहा है, हमारी जो गवर्नमेंट के बीच में हो रहा है, वो ठीक हो जाए कि जो भी वहाँ पे रह रहे हैं लोग, उनको थोड़ी घबराने की जरूरत ना पड़े, क्योंकि जो यहाँ रह रहे हैं उनकी फैमिलीज को भी थोड़ा सा होगा कि वहाँ पे जो हमारे फैमिली मेम्बर्स है कहीं उनको दिक्कत ना आए कुछ रहने की, तो इसलिए हम चाहते हैं कि सब ठीक हो जाए।
मैं नारी शक्ति बंधन अधिनियम 2023 के समर्थन में खड़ी हुई हूँ।
Mamata Banerjee and the Trinamool Congress have already walked the talk. We don't need to go on record to show this country that we support this bill.
It is one of the very few bills I think most of us would agree on.
An intense debate. Day 2 of the discussion on the Women's Reservation Bill.
और नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम. Several opposition parties supported the proposed legislation, but they did so with conditions. Subsequently, the Congress leader called for an immediate caste consensus and a sub-quota for women.
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a B&P Group company.
Powered by Volkswagen.
नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम 454 2/3 बहुमत द्वारा पारित हुआ.
New Sansad scripts her story. After Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha all set to pass the bill.
Make no mistake.
Debate over women's quota bill heats up in the Rajya Sabha.
अब रिसर्च ये बताती है कि women are more accessible than men as a public representative.